Right, so we are getting rolling here. We've got 240 already jumped on there, and the numbers are rising quick there as the platform allows everybody in. We are so grateful for all of you hanging in the wings there as we launch the platform here. The numbers are doubling every couple seconds, and because of the rate that Zoom allows people in the front door, I'll give you guys just a moment to get settled wherever you are in the world. We're grateful for this international audience that always comes together. If you feel inspired in this chat session, you're welcome to just pound in a quick hello from where you are, say a name and where you're at. It's always fun to see you. Thank you from Panama. Always great to see that part of the world coming in here strong. It's always bumping faster than I can even read here. Maui, California, Ojai, Santa Cruz, Los Angeles. Good Lord, you guys are faster than I can possibly keep up here. It's beautiful. Buenos Aires, wow. South Africa, hello. I'm going to be in South Africa pretty soon. Australia coming in. I'll be with you guys on a big webinar in a couple of days on Farm Footprint, I think tomorrow. Maine, New England, Oregon, Houston, Texas. Our hearts go out to all of you in Texas right now, and this huge loss that we've had in these last couple of days here. Just such tragic news. Blessings on all of the families involved and the friends and communities involved there. North Carolina, Asheville, hello, Minneapolis, Iceland, and my whole spiritual awakening and Serapic group were born in Iceland. That's a good story someday. All right, you guys are pounding in. All right, the numbers kind of leveling off here. It looks like the platform's got everybody in here, so we'll go ahead and get started together. This is going to be a memorable event for me personally, and I hope it strikes you deeply too. And the reason I know that is because I've been feeling extremely sensitive the last couple of days. I've been feeling my heart blown open in new ways, and a lot of it has to do with the regenerative nature of life itself. About a week ago, my adopted grandmother, who came into my life just a week or two after my biologic grandmother passed away, one of my closest, friends and relatives was my grandmother on my father's side. And when she passed, I felt a deep loss as a human being, and I think she delivered a voice to me, and this woman voice stepped into my life. She actually looked like my grandmother, and spoke with the same kind of regal quality that my grandmother carried with her. And I met her on stage in Santa Fe about 8 years ago or something like that, and have had just an extraordinary journey with this matriarch in my life of the 8 years. And she is currently in transition. And it's amazing to see the breadth of wisdom that flows out of people in the last hours, days of life. And as we consider a day of beauty, I lift up all of the elders among us, because there is nothing more beautiful ultimately than a life well lived. And a life well lived is never simple, and it's never smooth. It's never pretty, if you will, but it is beautiful. And it is for the big knocks and the big upsets that make a life like Voices so rich and beautiful. 86, 87 years on this planet will take you through so many chapters. And you will go into each of those chapters thinking you've arrived, thinking this is it. I finally got my life together. And then the rug will be ripped out from under you, or a Mack truck will come along and crush your rental car up front when you're not expecting it, or whatever's going to happen. There's going to be all kinds of storm around you in those decades of life. And in that, we develop the wrinkles of time. We develop the little folds in our energy field that occur when there is sudden changes of direction in the biologic realm. The biologic realm is so ethereal. 0.0001% of everything is solid. Everything else, 99.9999% of everything is vacuum space. And in that vacuum space is everything. Everything ever happened, everything that's ever going to happen is recorded in that vacuum space. and it's there in a form of a vibration. And so the fabric of everything is a vibrational energy that echoes through the chambers of the vacuum of the eons of space and time that are in our universe. And in all of that echoing and all of that vibration is the human journey. And if you think about your own personal life, just the last couple of weeks, the number of times that you've been driven to total exhaustion, the number of times you've been driven to hopelessness or a state of helpless defeat among the million things that are making you a reactive being instead of a proactive being, it's hard to then calculate that amount of experience over your lifetime, then multiply that by 7.8 billion souls in their lifetime right now that are currently present, and then hear that echoing through space-time. The parents that just lost their children last couple of weeks in these different school shootings, the grandparents, the aunts, uncles, the siblings who just lost sisters and brothers. There's a level of ache in being human that challenges our constitution all the time. And in this time of renewal in my life, I recognize that as one of my matriarchs is stepping into the etheric realm where she's actually been before. She actually had a near-death experience 25 years ago with one of the most beautiful afterlife experiences that has ever been recorded. And she's now going into this second departure, super volitional. She knows what it looks like on the other side. She knows how vast it is. She knows how beautiful she is. She knows how complete life is on the other side. She knows that there is no endpoint, that death is simply a departure from a single expression of life in that small biologic plane of existence, and that her energetic self continues. She has been energetically in her mind's eye in meditation, creating a magical vessel to travel in this time, because she remembers an experience that has inspired her to build a crystalline pod to travel through space and time in. And so I think it's interesting for us to think about life that way. You are traveling through space and time right now, and you're dying to yourself every minute. And there's a huge tendency for you to refuse to believe you're dying and rebirthing millions of times a second. But you are, at the biologic level, at the atomic level, you are rebirthing all the time. And the ways in which we carry disease forward from previous traumas in our lives is by clinging to those past experiences to try to define a self-identity by events that become contorted by a very ineffective memory of the human neurologic system. And so we are living some semblance of a warped and manipulated thought process of our past. And for that reason, when we step into this moment of beauty today, and we start to do a deep dive on what does the world want us to think beauty is, what does society and the consumer marketplace want us to think beauty is, and what are we going to allow as a redefinition of beauty to be in our lives, that's where we're going to dive deep. I'm so blessed to have three of the most extraordinary women that have shaped my career here. They have each, respectively been with me for a good long time, 6 to 10 years is the bookends of those journeys we walked together. And I'm excited for you to meet these people because they have, in addition to being who they are, they have chosen to be friends to me and friends to our company and our projects that have allowed them to serve as mirrors to each of us within these projects and companies. And in seeing myself in the face of my colleagues, I see some of the beauty in myself that I might miss in the morning when I just jump up and look in the mirror in the bathroom. The mirror of another human being is always more poignant and will show me more of the things I'm embarrassed about myself and more of the beauty within myself that I can fall in love with. And so these three people have had a huge impact on me, and I'm very excited to bring their expertise to you. We'll be diving in with them. But to frame the conversation that we're going to be covering in this concept of beauty, I'll give a quick background to the ways in which a former chemotherapy medical doctor finds himself into the world of science of skin and physical beauty. And it was a long journey, 12 years before that kind of manifested itself. But in the end, it was a discovery that there is no compartmentalization of the organ systems of the body. The skin is contiguous with the gut, which is contiguous with the vascular system, which is contiguous with the blood-brain barrier, which is contiguous with the kidney tubules that would detox your body, which is contiguous with the entire interplay of the fascial system. The fascia is this deep system of communication network that sits right below the skin, the dermis layer, and seems to be the information stream, the fiber optic information stream of memory. And so in an extraordinary way, when we think about memory, we tend to think of something up here in the brain, but we've never found in all of our years of neuroscience a section of the brain that holds long-term memory. It doesn't exist. There's a tiny little part of the brain that is like the RAM of your computer that does short-term memory, but there's no hard drive in the brain. In your computer, if you start typing something, the RAM is keeping track of the information input for a moment, but then it needs to be stored to the hard drive. Turns out that in the last decade, in the course of leaving chemotherapy and everything else, in the last decade, diving hard into neuro and gut health, it turns out that we find that the hard drive of the memory of the human life actually probably resides right there in the fascial plane of the dermis and in the subdermal area. And so when you're getting a massage or deep body work and you suddenly burst out crying for reasons you don't even understand, you have this huge emotional release. It's because you just hit a button on the hard drive that remembers an event in your life that was traumatic, that was injurious. And so it's fascinating when you start to think about the skin as not a barrier against air pollution and sun, which it is. It's actually the ethereal interface between space-time and gravity and who you are. This is where your identity begins in so many ways. And so your identity can be a visual experience, and our identity changes over time, and we have to fall in love with ourselves over and over again. The face that I carry around the world today looks nothing like the face that I had 20 years ago. I actually like my face today better than I do the face of 20 years ago, for the reason that there's a lot of wisdom baked onto this face that has been hard fought. And there's a lot of parts of my face that have been kissed by my elders that I hadn't been kissed by yet because I hadn't met them yet. And to have one of my elders in transition now, I'm just so grateful for the skin that I've had to interface with the space-time continuum that has put me in touch with her. And as I hold her hand by the bedside, I'm so grateful that I'm passing a memory into her ethereal being of me. And the more present I am in that, the more poignant will be my vibration with her as she becomes fully defined by her light body and travels in space again, signs up for her next journey. And so for each of us on right now, I want you to start to rethink your self-identity at the skin level. It's not going to be based on whether you have enough Botox in your head yet, or your newest tattoo, or whatever it is that we adorn ourselves with. It's about how you vibrate in this interface between the air and space around you and the biologic expression of yourself that is in some bizarre magical way an eminence of the way in which your soul vibrates and interacts with that tiny amount of physical matter that would be your body. 99.99% of you is a vibrational energy that we would call an energy field that is expressing itself in particle state when we have a visual experience of a body. And that's pretty interesting. Your soul designed you. In the womb, you began to shape according to the very specific and unique vibrational force that you are. And that's what I get to interface with every day when I'm traveling my tail off like I have been the last couple of weeks and got to meet a whole group of 100 people the last couple of days that have been intimately involved with as we've been pushing the kind of the envelope of consciousness and human health, and where all those collide. And the more close I come to bringing my heart to my boundary event of my skin, the more I get out of every situation. The more I bring my consciousness and my willingness to feel towards that outer boundary, the more beautiful life has become for me. And I want to encourage each of you to find a safe place in your home or in a week or whatever it is, and practice doing this. Let yourself expand to the very edges of the skin. Feel the tingly, prickly feeling of your skin when you bring your being out to that level. Most of you, if you're like me, are stuck up here in your head, and your whole energetic attention is up in your thoughts, which are all completely fake, BS, distracting, horribly self-destructive. And so we live in that space, and you don't have a clue what it feels like to know what the front of your shins feel like, or the bottom of your feet, or the back of your head. And so we're going to close our eyes for a minute before I introduce this amazing panel, and I'm going to ask you to become present with us, and we're going to commit to being present with you, not to pass a bunch of words back and forth, but to hold space between those words, to feel into each other in a way that no human is allowed to do right now. And in so doing, we will understand and forgive the shooters. We will be heartbroken and love and heal the wounds of those children departed, our elders departing, because we will allow ourselves to feel completely at this space-time continuum between your skin and the air around you. I am blessed to be with you and honored to do this short practice with you, to bring ourselves into awareness that we are sentient beings. That is a word that continues to grow on me. Sentient beings, to be able to feel. You have withdrawn so many times because of the traumas, the heartbreaks in your life. We're going to do the opposite now. We're going to welcome you to expand into your full sentient state. Acknowledge that you're in a safe space right now, and be grateful for that. And then let's expand. So close your eyes, let your shoulders fall away from your ears. Put your feet on the ground, uncross your legs if they're crossed. Unroll your shoulders if you need to. Reach them up towards your ear and let them drop back away from your chest. Let your chest open up. Let your heart center resonate. Hum for a second if you need to create a little bit of vibration in your chest. Hum and feel that vibration. And now I want you to feel your face. What are you sensing there? Take a deep breath and feel the air rushing across your nasal passages and your sinuses. Exhale. Feel what it feels like to be your belly. Feel the skin on your belly. Realize, oh my gosh, you've got millions of nerve fibers that are firing away, telling you what it feels like to have your shirt on, or ideally what it feels like to have your shirt off. That's your skin right there. That's air around you. What do your thighs feel like? What do the front of your shins feel like? What is the back of your neck sensing right now? And now we're going to take a deep breath together, and we're going to set an awareness of our capacity to expand our literal energy field. We are going to, like the sun coming up over the horizon with the sunrise, we're going to warm the space within us. Take a deep breath in and warm your entire body out to the boundary event of your skin throughout. Take a deep breath in one more time and release, and we'll come back together. And we'll acknowledge that we are in our full sentient state as I introduce this amazing group here. Dr. Mindy Pelz has been on the Global Health Education Summit a couple times in the past. She has incredible expertise in women's health and nutrition and the interface between our environments where the food interacts, as well as where we move to with the activity of our hormonal shifts over the course of life, and focus on not just fertility, but also menopause and where it goes. She's written some extraordinary books that we will have links to and all that but Dr. Mindy Pelz, so glad to have you back. Welcome to the group. Thrilled to have you here.
Thank you for having me. I just want to say that every time I hear you speak, it seems like life makes sense again. So I just want to thank you for that intro, because I'm gonna have to go back and listen to it. That was so powerful. So appreciate your heart.
Mm-hmm. So glad to have you on. Why don't you give us a little bit of overview of your career, what brings you here to that, but then also we invite you to give us a sense of what you're sensing and as a sentient being right now. What's giving you joy, what's warming you, and maybe what's challenging you as well. But give us a little bit of overview of who you are right this moment.
Yeah, I also have to laugh. This is not your traditional panel. I love where you just go right in. When you mentioned earlier that you would give us a few moments to talk about where we are, and I think you used the word identity, I had to laugh to myself because I am actually a little identityless, I feel right now. And maybe a lot of people are feeling that. I've recently moving out of private practice. My practice, my background is as a chiropractor, and I moved into doing detox and nutrition work about 10 years into practice. And I've been in that space for quite a long time, specializing, like you said, in women's hormones. But that's the curriculum stuff. That's the curriculum vitae type of stuff. Who I am as a human is I'm recently an empty nester. My children have left the home, and I'm learning what it means to mother children who live outside of the home. I'm not in private practice anymore, so I'm not having that day-to-day interaction with patients. And so I'm grieving the loss of both of those as I'm emerging into really helping women, specifically women over 40, embrace what life looks like as we move through menopause. And the reason that was so important to me was I'm 52, and in my 40s, I really struggled. I struggled with hormones, I struggled with moods, I struggled with energy. And what I found was that so many women, I was not alone, so many women were struggling during that time. And it's such a pivotal time because we're getting to know ourselves for the first time. We are not as focused on being people pleasers and focused on doing what everybody else wants us to do, but we're turning within and asking ourselves, what do we want to do? And it's in that moment that our hormones are declining, and they are causing mood changes and sleep changes and skin changes. And so our identity is changing. And when you don't want, I know the women on the line that are either menopausal or postmenopausal, that experience of just not having a cycle that's regular every 28, 30 days, that is unearthing unto itself. So as I sit here identityless, I sit here in a place of joy, knowing that I can emerge into something new. And I've been in deep introspective reflection of just who am I going to be when I emerge? I heard somebody say one time, and this really stuck with me, that when the pandemic started, a friend of mine said, I can't wait to see who I'm going to be, who the person I will be at the end of this pandemic. And I feel a little bit like that as I'm transitioning into full menopause. I can't wait to meet the woman that's going to be on the other side of this. So I don't have a clear identity for you today, but I can tell you that I'm a woman who is asking a lot of questions who deeply cares. If you ask what's on my heart right now, it's other women who are resonating with the way what I'm speaking of. I'm so grateful for the opportunity to talk about skin today, because we have villainized aging. I love what you said about how hard you fought for the lines on your face. My husband always tells me that these are my wisdom lines, because he says, you're such a deep thinker. He's like, those are, you don't ever do anything with those. Those are your wisdom lines. Yet we have so many women that are villainizing what they're seeing on their face. And that's not okay. I mean, I feel like at the age I'm at right now, I have more wisdom in every cell of my body than I ever did living in a human body, and the ability to share that wisdom from not just my words, but my facial expression is so important to me. So there's my long-winded answer of who I am today, and come back in a year, invite me back in a year, and you'll probably see a different person and a few more lines.
That's beautiful. Well, one of my favorite things about having deep friendships and longitudinal friendships in life is that sometimes we get to know those around us better than they can see themselves, and better than we can see ourselves. And so that's why community is so critical ultimately. So you are a multifaceted being that has shown up at a tipping point of human health that revolves around our connection to our nature. And you've made nutrition a huge part of your understanding of that interaction with our health and our disease as a species. And you've also come to really understand something beautiful about cycles, hormones, being one of my passions as an endocrinologist. I got so riveted and decided ultimately to go into endocrinology by the fact that the systems of hormones are always listening. And I'm just phenomenally interested in that. The endocrine system is always listening to its environment all of the time. In every single one of your 70 trillion cells, the endocrine system is alert, and it is going to give an equal and opposite reaction sometimes, or an equal and reinforcing action other times, depending on what it's feeling in its environment. And so while you might be distracted and destructive and self-destructive in your head, your endocrine system is always there to be a regenerative agent. And so, Mindy, give us a little bit of a glimpse of what was the path perhaps there, but what is your current conviction about the role of nutrition with the hormonal cycles, with the concept of aging and consciousness and wisdom?
Yeah, I think the best way I can explain that is in my own journey. When I hit 40, I had one goal, and that was to fit into my skinny jeans and be in the best shape of my life. And I accomplished that through a lot of exercise, a lot of deprivation of nutrition. I felt like I had done everything needed to be done to get in great shape. That was 40. By 43, I was waking up in the middle of the night. I couldn't sleep all the way through the night. I was anxious often. I was depressed for no particular reason. I was putting on weight in areas I didn't even realize that weight would accumulate. And, to the skin's point, the wrinkles were starting to show up. So I went to other women. I think this is the one thing we do as women so well, is we lean into each other. And so I went to my elders, my friends who were 5-10 years older than me. I went to my mother, my older sister, and I went searching for answers. And the responses I got were multifaceted. One was, buck up, little camper. This is menopause. This is what you're going through. And the other one was time to get on SSRIs or HRT or bioidenticals. This is not a criticism of those, but it felt like I needed to take a pill to solve what was brewing inside of me. And I was one night at my kids' science fair, and I was next to one of the other's moms who was an OB. And I just turned to her and started to just pour out my story to her, which is very uncharacteristic of me in that kind of setting. And I asked her, what can I do? Tell me how I can help this menopausal experience that I'm having. And her response, she stopped looking at the science experiment, and she turned and she looked right at me and she said, Mindy, I have a practice full of women like you, and my medical textbooks have failed me. And it was like she hit me across the face. And what happened in that day is I realized that it was my personal responsibility to go find my own answers to this journey that I was on. And what I discovered was there were some very clear things as my hormones started to decline. And this would be my message really to any woman as she enters her 40s or beyond, is these beautiful ovaries that have been showing up for you, giving you eggs month after month after month. At 40, they start to go into retirement. And it's not like it happens overnight. It happens 10 to 15 years of a process where the ovaries are going down in their production of sex hormones. And in that change, our lifestyle has to change. Our foods have to change. One of my passions became fasting. Fasting is incredibly helpful for women over 40, but we have to do it in a very specific way. My sleep patterns, my stress levels, my exercise, my relationships, like I changed my whole lifestyle to match where my hormones were heading. And in that, I found peace within myself. And ultimately, that's what I ended up writing about in the Menopause Reset was my journey. And people can go get that if that's of interest. But it was my journey on how lifestyle has to change at 40. And I saw such a dramatic change in my own health that I just wanted to go back and grab all the 30-year-olds, all the 35-year-olds. And I wanted to go to all the 60-year-olds and 65-year-old women that are still getting hot flashes and still struggling to sleep. And I just wanted to shout from the rooftop that there is a lifestyle that needs to change as your hormones change. And I'm happy to go through pieces of that, but that was really where I got into understanding these different cycles, was that nothing was wrong with me. It was that I was moving into a new phase that needed my lifestyle to be different.
Fantastic. I love that. That reinvention of self, that's happening at that fabric level every millionth of a second is such an interesting, reality that we live in as being atomic, molecular beings. And the fact that we would attribute the same behavior every day as the right answer for that day is such an ironic belief system in so many ways. But it definitely leads us down a lot of paths, and the cycles can be very short that change, right? Seasonally, obviously, the nutrition changes from season to season can be really profound on your health. And so trying to eat a kale salad every day, 360 days a year is going to kill you. It actually is really difficult for your digestion and all that on the human side, but deeper than that, the microbiome becomes more and more monotonous with a failure to change, a lack of variety, and a failure to understand your seasonality, your part in life there. So give us a sense of what you found are really helpful ways to tie us back to nutrition sources that seem to be able to support us during these ups and down cycles, whether it be a lunar month for a woman who's menstruating, or a seasonal chapter for each of us going through temperate changes, or these longer seasons of life as we move through hormonal menopause, which happens to both men and women. And women tend to have more significant outward expression of that. But inwardly, I think men have a more dramatic, decline. It just gets, it's happening at the vascular level, neurologic level, and so it's not as visible, perhaps as hot flashes or something like that. But for everybody on, it's worthwhile. So you have really blessed me and intrigued me with your nutrition plan for literally grounding us as a being. So what are your go-tos when somebody is cycling fast or changing quickly? What are your go-to grounding forces in the nutrition realm?
Well, you said it in the beginning, which was the mind-blowing piece for me, which is, as women, and we'll start with women here, we are not made to eat the same way. If you're a cycling woman, you're not made to eat the same way every single day of your cycle. You're not. And if we just take estrogen, progesterone, and testosterone, those hormones, if they could speak to you, they would request vastly different nutritional needs. For example, estrogen does really well with a lower carbohydrate meal. Estrogen does really well with fasting, if that's what you love doing. Whereas progesterone progesterone doesn't want you to fast. Progesterone doesn't want glucose down. In fact, your body is so intelligent that when your body's trying to make progesterone, it purposely keeps you more insulin resistant. But if we just look at those two things in cycling women, what do we do the week before our cycle? We bitch about the fact that our carb craving goes up. Yeah, it goes up. It's supposed to go up because you need to have more glucose so that you can make a hormone that makes you feel better. Whereas we feel more inner when progesterone's going up. Whereas when estrogen kicks in the front half of our cycle or into the ovulation period, we're a lot more intuitive. We're a lot more verbose. We can multitask like nobody's business. And estrogen wants that carbohydrate level down, those processed carbs, those breads, the cakes, it doesn't matter if it's gluten-free, wants that down. But we also have to mind our microbiome. We've got to be able to have resources to build a diverse microbiome that can break estrogen down. So I think the biggest change that I saw was how, as I discovered this at like 43, how did I make it from starting my period at 13 to 43 without ever understanding that my hormones needed different foods and different lifestyle? That alone, this is not even talking about menopausal women, that alone needs to be shouted from the rooftops. We need to go into schools and teach 13, 14, 15-year-old girls this. We need to start to talk about this more, because the one size fits all program, whether it's a diet or a treatment plan, is no longer working specifically for women because of the way that we cycle.
One of the things that comes to mind as I'm listening to this is the concept of nurture. We forget that food is nurture. We think of it as fuel. We think of it as nutrients. We forget that it's nurture. And we've, in so doing, turned what is, I think, the most beautiful example of the feminine energy on planet, which would be our foods, the variety of foods that Mother Earth has birthed for us, into a masculine archetype of calcium and nutrients and calories. And we took all of the magic out of food. And among the magic lost was the concept of nourishment and nurture. And so as you're sitting there talking about a woman who's moving into her progesterone cycle there, which is kind of the explosion that happens right around your luteal phase, and you're around day 11, 12 of the cycle, the big spikes and a couple of hormones happen, LH, FSH. And at that moment, you're changing thousands of downstream genetic expressions of different receptors and protein synthesis, and it's an explosion. And the coolest thing that's happening right there from my endocrine years was this like hallowed data that came out around 2005 that during that explosion of progesterone, all of the neurons in the female brain will sprout new dendrites. And the dendrites are the potential of new connections across new neural pathways. And so isn't that fascinating that your body upregulates the desire for good carbohydrate loading, just as an athlete would before exercise, because it's about to do what? It's about to create new potential for thought, new potential for processing and finding new patterns of neurologic behavior. And so to start to think about that, day 5 through 12 kind of thing of your cycle, of how am I going to nurture my body so that my new brain will have nothing but pleasure as its new foundation.
I love that.
And pleasure comes in many different forms that can be misinterpreted, but the brain is easily drugged, and that's what you have to watch out for. So a drug response is not actually the same as pleasure. In the end, pleasure is an experience that leaves you relaxed at the end of it rather than frenetic at the end of it. And so you can get a dopamine surge out of a refined carbohydrate, something like that. Your Frappuccino or something at Starbucks will light up your frontal lobes like nobody's business. You'll think, oh, wow, I feel like I really took care of myself in that ritual. But what just happened is you will, 2 hours later, obviously feel completely frenetic. You'll have an anxiety attack halfway to the soccer practice, and you'll want to punch somebody in the face, and all this stuff happening a couple hours later. Pleasure is that introduction into beauty, where we start to feel ourselves drawn into the current of a nutritional experience or a nourishment experience. And so what are your go-tos when the brain obviously is starting to short circuit, it's been a tired day, and you're changing cycles, whether that's progesterone or otherwise. What are some of the hacks that you've found there to allowing your body to make those right steps towards pleasure?
Well, the first hack that anybody who knows me would be like, oh yeah, that's her hack, is a sweet potato. Okay, can we just talk about how awesome the sweet potato is? There are so many reasons to glorify the sweet potato, but here's the thing about the sweet potato is when I look at what I need, like when I know that my body's building progesterone, and for the menopausal and postmenopausal woman on the call, I want to speak to you as well, because I hear a lot from the postmenopausal community, like, well, what if you don't have a cycle that you are tracking? You still have, to your point, there are moments where your body's still trying to make progesterone, or it's still trying to make estrogen. And if you're intuitive and you're listening, you can hear your body speaking to you. And when I know that progesterone needs attention is when I'm feeling lower in energy, I'm feeling more hungry, I'm craving more carbs. But what is really important is that we lean into nature's carbs in those moments, which is why, and you and I have talked about this is why I love the sweet potato. I love squashes. Those are the root vegetables are so nourishing and healing for progesterone, and they can help you go inward even more. They are not energizing foods because you don't want to be energized when progesterone is building. You want to be in that more introspective space. Whereas estrogen does a really well. Those of you that really like the seeds, like the good seeds, like flax seeds and chia seeds and hemp seeds, those can be incredible. And nuts in general, raw nuts, can be really great for helping raise estrogen. Again, more of leaning, if you eat meat, leaning more into meat, but again, staying away from the high glucose foods to build estrogen. So, and then testosterone, for women, again, because we're on that topic, for women, testosterone comes like knocking on the door when obviously libido goes down, but I think that's sort of that gets the most press. We know that we need testosterone when we don't feel like working out anymore, when our motivation is really low, when we do work out and we're really sore, we need more testosterone. And this is actually, testosterone can do really well with things like intermittent fasting. A woman can raise her testosterone by as much as 1,300% just from a daily routine of intermittent fasting. So what needs to happen is we can teach women how to pull these nutritional tools out as we need them. But what we have been doing is the one size fits all diet. And we eat the same way every month. And we go into menopause eating the same way we ate at 30. That if I could break any paradigm apart, I would break that one apart. And I would also include in that paradigm the calorie. It's not helping you. It's not helping you balance your hormones to start to obsess on calories. So when we look at cycles, we look at food, and we get to know our sex hormones, all of a sudden we have a whole new relationship with something like the sweet potato.
Beautiful. I love it. Fantastic. Well, we'll take that and jump to our next panelist. Mindy, thank you so much. I'm excited for you guys to be chatting together in a few minutes, but I'm going to pull in Elle Macpherson, a name that doesn't need to be introduced to the world for sure, but a person that the world would do well to meet. The public perception of anybody in the public eye for as long of a career as Elle has had comes with a lot of projection. We tend to project on our visible public heroes, all of our own selves, and we fail to meet them. So I want you all to meet Elle Macpherson, one of the most amazing women I've ever met. She has an incredible depth of knowledge in this area that we're talking about. She obviously was thrust at an early age onto the global stage of beauty as a concept. And over the last few decades, she has done the hard wrought work of finding beauty inside of herself. And in that journey, she became the CEO of one of the first companies to roll out a beauty platform based on gut health and nutrition. And so Wellco is the company she started about 8 years ago out of Australia. And she continues at the helm of that company doing a beautiful job of bringing new awareness of beauty from within, and how our relationship to our food and environments have huge impact on the bodies we express. But deeper than that, I'm going to let her introduce herself, just as Mindy did to us. And so, Elle, welcome to Global Health Education. So glad to have you here, and the audience prepare to be dazzled.
Hi, everyone. It's so great to be here. And Zach, thanks for that beautiful introduction. Mindy, so love hearing you. I could relate with so much that you said. And it's a lot of my journey of how WellCo was founded. I have had a sort of extraordinary, almost surreal career, being in the public eye and being in the fashion industry and beauty industry for over 40 years. And it's quite, let's say, unforgiving as a business. And what I found throughout my journey, my own personal experience, was that the underlying foundation for beauty really was wellness. And I found that out because I was trying to sustain my own work, my business, my career, my capacity to earn an income. And it was, greatly dependent upon the way I looked. And I, like you, realized, when I turned 50, actually 8 years ago, that the old stuff I was doing wasn't working anymore. And I'd been applying the things that I was doing when I was in my 20s and 30s. And suddenly my skin was dry, my hair was brittle, I was putting on weight, I felt like shit. Am I allowed to say that?
Yeah.
I was, I was sugar addicted. I was sleep deprived. I was miserable. And I just thought to myself, okay, that's it. I'm going to be fat and 50, and I was taking all these vitamins, and nothing was working. And I went on a mission to sort of find a solution, because nobody could tell me. They just basically said, well, you're 50, it's normal. And I'm like, no, it's not going to work for me. And I found this incredible nutritionist in London who, when I went and I took all my vitamins to her, and she said, first of all, these are synthetic vitamins, your body's not absorbing them. So she always says, you're not what you eat, you're what you absorb, and you are certainly not absorbing these nutrients. And she said, modern farming and the way we till our soils today means that the foods that we're eating are nutrient deprived. And so we do need to replace these nutrients into our bodies, but we need to do it in a way that our body recognizes. And so she put me on a bunch of green formulas, series of formulas, and I started to see within a few weeks massive improvement in everything, from my mood to my sense of vitality to my sense of joy in life, and get up and go. And that was really the foundation of WellCo. I said to myself, if I'm feeling like this with all the resources that I have, how must the average woman be coping? And I really wanted to, share my wisdoms and share the tools that I had learned, and the kind of experience that I'd had with other women. And so I founded WellCo on the eve of my 50th birthday. It was sort of my gift to other women, my gift to myself, really, as well. And it was really aimed at this concept of amplifying your beauty through wellness in natural ways. And it's been an extraordinary journey. I've loved every minute of it. I think the real reward has been helping other people find the beauty within themselves, because I've spent most of my career. Okay, so the first part of my career was presenting my beauty that everybody else seemed to see, but I didn't see. Then there was a segment in my career where I was starting to discover the beauty within myself, not easy to accept. And now it's really about helping other people discover the beauty within themselves. And that comes from wellness. It's the underlying pinning of that sort of sense of vitality, that sense of confidence, that sense of well-being. Really, you can't experience that unless you're fundamentally well. And it's been an interesting journey.
It's beautiful. And before I jump into more questions about some of your approach to kind of that gut nutrition axis, and you have recent hormone support and skin support products that you guys have been worked out as well, but all from a nutritional kind of nutrient backing on all of those, which I love. But I didn't give you the opportunity to give us a blank slate. Introduce yourself. You're probably avoiding it, and that's probably appropriate. But I'm gonna hold you to it, as I think there's an opportunity for everybody here to get a big dose of the deeper experience of beauty that you've pulled out of what is just always a brutal career. It's always brutal to be in the public eye, especially if you're going to be labeled in the space of fashion or beauty or whatnot. And so you've done the hard knocks. And so if you take a deep breath and close your eyes, you have such a multifaceted life as well that goes far beyond the industries we would talk about here. But what's driving you right now? Why do this? Why wake up? Why push it all? What's giving you the spark right now?
Ugh. You know, every time we speak, I find myself in tears, and it happens all the time. And I think it's because it's when you get very close to the truth, and it moves my heart like this. But and to be seen, to be really seen, and I feel like you really see me. So what's moving me? Well, who I am today, I am a light being. I am a woman who is emanating the love and the beauty and the light that I have within myself in everything I do. And every choice I make is about being in touch with that core love and light within my spirit. And I've been numb to it for a really long time. I've focused so much on the exterior that everybody else saw as beautiful, that I never really took time to get to know myself. And over the last 10 years, it's been a journey of getting to know myself through ups and downs and ins and outs. And like Mindy, I have 2 children that are in college. One's in college, one is, out of college and could be considered an empty nester. But I am in the most beautiful phase of my life. And I would never have thought that at nearly 60, I'd be saying that. But I feel so loved up right now, and appreciative of myself and the people in my life. So, and the love that I get from my community.
I told you guys. I told you it would be good. Thank you for sharing. Thank you for hitting that. As you've launched into Wellco, and you've really were one of the first, out there as a company to really understand that connection between the nutrients that were going in to your body. And you set out with, a beauty, premise, a beauty message in your company with a single product that's now known, I think, as the Elixir. And you've got, well, give us a rundown of what you put in that, because I think it's indicative of this concept of when we lost the nurture, in the food system.
Yeah, so the Super Elixir is our hero product, and it's a 50 ingredient super green powder. And what I learned, and it's a bit like life, right? You can't just throw a bunch of ingredients together and say, well, it's got vitamin D and vitamin C and vitamin. It's this careful combination of ingredients that amplify each other. Like us, we are an ingredient, but when we're together, we amplify the space, we amplify the energy. We bring so much more to the table as we communicate with each other, even if it's on Zoom, the vibration between our energies. And it's the same with the nutrients inside the Super Elixir, for example. So that was the foundation of our product. And, when people started taking it, they started to see huge differences. And then we expanded out. I realized that I was going through a period where I was exploring being vegan, which I am still, plant-based. I don't like to call myself vegan, vegetarian, whatever, but I prefer to eat plants. But I was finding it really difficult to find plant-based clean plant-based protein that didn't come from animals. And so we started then, we made a clean protein powder, and then sleep is so important. So we started with a regenerative sleep tea. So it was sort of this morning, noon, and night concept. But when I first started the business, I realized that nobody was going to be really interested in drinking like a green sludge powder, because when it gets in a glass, it's green and it tastes like grass, and mine doesn't actually. It tastes like pineapple or orange. But I realized that women were not going to be so interested in that. So we packaged this product like a beauty product, and we sold it on the floors of department stores as a beauty product. And when I could use that access into the door of vanity almost, and started to be able to explain to them that from a wellness perspective, nutrition and nurturing and nutrients was the foundation for us having great digestion, all 11 systems of the body being nurtured, then they started to listen. But it's so much more than that, Zach, that, and all of us know that. I mean, from all these many years in this business, I realized that, to define ourselves as beautiful purely by, a few millimeters of epidermis and bone structure and the weight that we are on a scale is absolutely preposterous, because the only way we've been able to sustain, if you look at any supermodel or even, my career, the only way I've been able to sustain my career is really because of my inner essence. It's what I bring to the table, the love, the compassion, the way and not just me, anybody, when you walk into a room, what you bring of your spirit and of your soul is what people find so attractive. They don't look at your hair color or your eye color or what you're wearing even anymore. It's how do you make people feel when you spend time with them? How do they feel about themselves when they spend time with them, when they spend time with you? And, that's what I'm interested in, is uncovering that, or encouraging people to find that within themselves and bring their uniqueness out into this world, because their life becomes better. The world becomes a better place when we kind of bring our unique being into this world.
So well said. I think that's, a perfect transition to, Megan Buer, our next panelist here. But maybe the transition here comes from an experience that I've shared many times when breaking bread with new groups of people around conferences or events that are going on or whatnot that I get invited to. It was something I learned from an elderly couple out of Ikaria, Greece, which is one of the blue zones where everybody tends to live over 100 years on this island and just have an incredible longevity. They were flown over to prepare a multi-course Greek meal for the 17 speakers at this little tiny event in Northern Virginia. And they foraged for a couple of days to try to find food that would honor their cuisine that they were going to prepare. And they had to forage through yards in Northern Virginia, suburban America, before they found onions that they thought were worthy of their cooking. Because they go to the grocery store and were appalled by American onions. They're like, these things are huge. They haven't been in the ground forever. I don't even know if they've touched the ground. They're like, these things are terrible. They're acidic. They're worthless. And so they went and foraged in backyards until they found these baby onions that we would call baby, they would call perfect. And she prepared about a 7-course meal, but one of the courses was just one of those onions on every plate. There was one onion on the middle of the plate, and the description that she gave of this onion before she served it just made everybody cry. And I realized that American onions make you cry for all the wrong reasons, and a well-prepared Greek onion makes you cry because you just found your heart. But this woman told this story about this onion, and then when we put it in our mouth, we tasted an experience. It was simply a baked onion with a little bit of fennel on it, a little bit of salt and pepper, and it dissolved in the mouth. You didn't have to chew it. It just, the way she had prepared it, it literally just gave itself up in your mouth. And it was such a sensual, beautiful experience. We were all crying for the reason that we had gone for all these decades, most of us in our 40s and 50s, without ever having tasted an onion. And it was really that momentary heartbreak of, my God, so much of my life has passed by and I didn't notice. I didn't take note of the beauty around me, and I kept chopping onions and crying for the wrong reasons. And I didn't know that there was such beauty if I would pay attention to when is something actually beautiful. It's not when it's at its biggest state of productivity. It's not when it delivers the biggest bang for the buck at the supermarket. Its beauty is effervescent and only witnessed when it gives itself up. And so there's some incredible message in there that gives me goosebumps to think about as we start to think about that deeper beauty that you were speaking about. It's the essence of what we bring, not the physical attributes of what we bring. And that essence is why we bring Megan Buer here. Megan and I have had a very long run together. We've been together almost 12 years, I think. But Megan is one of these women that I have been able to witness in my life that has exemplified the concept of courage. This woman has done things in her life to break patterns of belief and patterns of ancestral behaviors and patterns of social pressures at every juncture that I've known her. And I've seen her through many amazing chapters, and she gets more and more beautiful as her courage continues to forge new paths for her. And she's gotten so good at shrugging off the judgment of society, so good at shrugging off other people's definitions of her metrics of success to forge her own. And Megan, my hat is off to you. To the audience, if you want to hear a lioness roar, listen to Megan Buer. This woman is a powerhouse, and what she does is beautiful. I'm going to let you introduce your career professional expertise for a moment, and then we'll give you an opportunity to do the blank slate for us as well.
Thank you, Zach. I'm so happy to be here. As far as career goes, we've been working, I've been working with Zach's patients for 10, 12 years now at this point. So I am a certified emotion code practitioner. And basically what that is, it's a form of energy healing. And my job is to really hone in on kind of what Zach was saying at the beginning, that empty space, that vacuum space where we can get all of that emotional baggage gets stuck and it gets trapped and it gets icky. My job is to clear that out. And so I work with, clients that are dealing with all sorts of issues, if it's physical, mental, emotional. And really, as we tie this into beauty, it's funny because the webinar is about skin, but all we're talking about is beauty. And I just thought that was really interesting. And one thing, this ties back into my intro, I promise. But one thing that I've really noticed is we're not talking about, a brand new skincare lotion or a new tube of mascara. We're talking about a different kind of radiance that comes from within, that comes from our wellness. And we can be doing all these pieces. We can be, eating the right foods and taking the right supplements and getting sunshine and getting grounded and blah, 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 blah. But if we are walking around just carrying anxiety, depression, anger, frustration, overwhelm, all of these things, you're going to be hitting a wall. And that for sure was my experience, and Zach saw that, firsthand. So yeah, I've been seeing clients for 10 years now and have created an online course and different things to mostly work with women to help them get back into that state of radiance on all levels.
Amazing. And the results have been stunning. And when you're running a clinic and see the opportunity to be with a multidisciplinary team like this and have somebody like this step in, I learned it from her as she applied it to herself. And I found that the best practitioners out there are those that learn their trade by their own self-discovery, as Dr. Mindy Peltz was talking about her own path there. I've seen you on that path, Megan, and that emotion code therapy had such a poignant effect on you and your kids and your whole extended family. Like, you immediately applied this powerful tool as soon as it worked in you so effectively to your own environment. And then there was some time that naturally passes before you suddenly realize, oh my gosh, that's my path. I'm supposed to go do that thing that helped me. And so I've gotten to watch you on that beautiful journey towards that. But before we jump into a little bit of Q&A, do you want to do a blank slate for us? Do you want to close your eyes and Tell us who you are.
So yeah, as far as what is lighting me up right now, so I'm engaged and I have 3 kids, and my future husband has 3 kids. And our 2 oldest boys are both on the autism spectrum. And we have been dreaming of this very big dream that we kind of just launched this, and it's called Guiding Arrow Nature Camp. And so it's going to be a camp out here in, beautiful Virginia, where we can bring autistic children to the camp in the summer, where they have the ability to learn lots of different life skills, but yoga, mindfulness, art. I'm going to do some, emotional work, some counseling, just giving them a space to be who they really are, and really celebrate everybody's uniqueness in this wonderful generation of children that are going through so much right now and are really lacking in a lot of that sense of community. So, and Zach, I know the healing power of nature and community is so powerful, and especially for these special needs kids, it's so needed right now. So that's what is really exciting me right now.
That's amazing. That is amazing. I hadn't gotten to hear that vision yet. That's so thrilling.
Yeah.
What a great journey. And I think that one of the things that I would love to dive into with you for a moment, let you reflect on, is just as Dr. Peltz was talking about, kind of this correlation between our cravings and the macro behavior that's kind of dominating our brain and our hormones. Give us a little reflection on our behavior around food, nutrition, and our emotions. What have you seen over that decade as to kind of the links between those, and how you are, what have you seen then in the ability to remove an emotional trauma or an emotional belief system, and what tends to change?
So obviously food is a really heated topic, especially with women, especially regarding health and beauty and all of those things. And I know I have my own story with, beauty and body image and food and all of those things. And, and I was, 12 years ago, I was your patient in there, frustrated that, my hormones were off. I had these kids and I was just tired all the time, and my labs were fine, but I felt like a pile of shit and I couldn't figure out what was going on. And I was trying all the different diets, and I was, eating perfectly and taking, all these expensive supplements, and I was doing all the stuff. Right. And that's when I came to you and I was like, all right, I don't know what to do anymore. And that's really when the emotional piece kind of came into my sphere. And I remember at first pushing it away, thinking, it's got to be another food. Like, I've got to cut out another food. I don't have time to deal with my emotions. I don't have time to deal with, my anxiety and all these things. There's got to be a different supplement I need to take first. Like, there's got to be something. I'll deal with that stuff later. I'm sick right now. And, something's got to change. And, famous last words. Whereas now I see that as, our imbalance, if it's physical, mental, emotional, if it's with our relationship with food, with our relationship with our self-image, always has some sort of emotional underpinning. There's always some sort of trapped emotional trauma that needs to be released. And as we do that, as we clear these things out, that relationship with food becomes so much more natural. People talk all the time about intuitive eating now. Well, to throw that in my face 15 years ago, I would have been like, I have no idea which way is up right now. Like, I couldn't see that. I couldn't feel that in my body. I was so overwhelmed with anxiety and all these other things that I was not able to be intuitive. I was not able to, to really feel into that relationship and heal that relationship with food, so that I could be to a place where I was feeding myself things that my body wanted, not just what my brain was craving or my tongue was craving. So as far as food is always emotional. it's always emotional. And, the more that we are able to release all that past trauma on that energetic level, we're able to touch into our intuition, not just regarding food, but regarding every facet of our life.
Beautiful. I'm going to open it up to let you guys all ping off each other a little bit there, and everybody in the audience. I'm always amazed that a couple thousand of you can stay on for 2 hours. Thank you for sticking with us here into these conversations. But why don't you guys start pounding in some questions in the Q&A section in the audience there. For those of you that want to open up the Q&A box, even if you don't have a burning question in your mind, you can track the questions that are coming in and you can upvote those, because typically we get more than we can answer during this session, but you can upvote the ones that really resonate with you, and we'll try to get the ones with the most votes at least. So open up the Q&A box, pound in a question, or at least upvote the ones that are coming in over the next bit. And let me open it up. Mindy, it's been a while since you've been able to speak up, so I've kept you quiet. So what's bouncing around in your head?
Oh my God, there's a lot bouncing around in my head. I've been vacillating between, am I a participant enjoying these two lovely women talking, or am I actually participating, or am I actually a speaker here? This was just been profound. Gosh, the common thread that I'm hearing that I just hope doesn't get missed is what attracts us to people has very little to do with the skin or with beauty. There, so many times we've been in interchanges with somebody and we go, I don't know why, but your energy, I want more of. I want to be around more. Or so many times we interact with somebody and we leave a better person. We leave more energized. And Elle mentioned this, and where my heart went is this should be the goal as a human, to show up in the most loving, compassionate way and really turn within to get to know ourselves, so that we can contribute to an incredible, beautiful vibration that this planet so deserves. And instead, we tend to look outside of ourselves to make ourselves look beautiful, or buy ourselves things to make ourselves feel successful. But I think if we really sat down and looked at life, everything we're searching for starts with going within and being the best version of us, so we can attract the best situations and we can be the best humans that this planet and world need. That was my takeaway.
Beautiful. Jump in there, either of you.
And it's so interesting that this has all been about, we started, again, we were supposed to be talking about the skin, and we're just talking about, taking this totally fresh perspective on what it means to be beautiful, or what beauty is. And that goes so beyond the commercialized view of that. And it really taps into this natural primal beauty that we're all seeking. And that has nothing to do with, how we look. Truly, it has everything to do with our hearts and our heart space and what we are offering the world.
Totally. I'm totally with you. I mean, as far as I see it, I believe that, beauty is not skin deep, it's soul deep. And showing up and being present, truly present in the moment with every human being in every situation that we're in, and present with ourselves, is really the solution. Because a lot of people go, yeah, it's nice. How do you do that? It's just that single-mindedness and actually showing up. That's where you see the beauty in others. I kind of disagree in the sense that it's sort of not about the way you look, because when I show up and I'm one-on-one with somebody or with many people, I see their beauty. I see them as so beautiful, and it's overwhelming sometimes. It brings me to tears when I see that. And I think it's only because I've been able to see the beauty within myself. Mm-hmm. And it's taken me a long, long time. I've been photographed all my life. I've seen beautiful photographs of me all my life. I never, ever felt I didn't feel that beauty within me, and I didn't see it. I could see it from a commercial point of view, but I never really felt it. And today I am witnessing myself, the beauty within me, with the help of beloved friends around me that have also seen the beauty within me. And then I'm able to show up truly present in all circumstances. And it's just an incredibly fulfilling way to live life.
Something that strikes me there that is so well said there is this idea that, you know, you're looking at photographs of yourself that are images created by somebody else's eye that's creating a snapshot of a physical impression of you, but you felt unseen by the photograph ultimately.
Yeah.
So I think when we look at pictures of ourselves and we make judgment on it, or we feel like it's vacant to us, or I often look at pictures of myself and just like, is that me? I don't even recognize myself. Like that disconnect is because I'm not connected to self. I'm not seeing myself. And therefore those around me certainly can't see myself because I haven't given permission for the world to see me. And so it's the work that you've done, I think, as the walk we're all walking, which is how many walls can we take down? How many insecurities and fears about ourselves can we take down until we discover our own beauty? And there's an incredible line, I think it was attributed to the Course in Miracles, but Nick Sanchez, who's written a bunch of books out of the Course in Miracles, I think was the one that told me about it. But she says, we will, as split minds, we walk around, and when we do our best work, we will be friends to those around us. And in so doing, we will be a mirror to them, and they will see themselves in us, and we will see ourselves in them. But when we solve the split mind and we let go of the ego and we become whole, we will see each other.
Yeah.
That's an incredible concept of, boy, we do service to one another by being in community and being a mirror to one another. But what you're starting to express there is when you're sitting with somebody and really showing up present, you see their beauty just unfolding and unfolding and unfolding in front of you. And you can imagine they're having the same experience there. And so really what we're going to do is, I think as a society, move into this next chapter of opportunity to become so present that we start being instead of doing, that we will radiate that connection. But I do want to challenge each of you to circle back now that we've talked about the essence of beauty, and let's think about the nurture of that beauty back in, because we'll walk away from this and of the 10,000 people that signed up and all that, and they're going to watch this content. They're still stuck in a society that's going to tell them to put these 160 chemicals on your face every day because it's going to moisturize your skin or protect your skin or reduce wrinkles, or it's not this realization of beauty from within. It has a limited effect to impact our treatment of our skin until we find the beauty in the skin. And so as much as we want to see the beauty beyond the skin, we're also going to have to see the beauty in the skin. And so in our laboratory, for example, for the last couple of years, we have done a literal deep dive on the skin, and we've been growing keratinocytes, which are the cells that birth your dermis, the epidermis, the whole skin that you touch is birthed from this layer of cells that is an epithelial layer, just as your gut lining is. And it turns over all the time, just like your gut lining does. And so the keratinocytes are these generative machines that are creating layers and layers and layers of your epidermis. And as they reproduce, that the upper cells that have been released from the dermal layer or of that keratinocyte layer desiccate, they dry out quickly and layer up on top of each other to create the skin that you feel, which is 10 to 15 cells deep of layered keratinocytes that are sloughing off all the time. And so the keratinocytes are churning away and producing skin all the time. And so you have this generative, constantly turning over barrier that we call skin. And what we've learned in our lab, as we've started to study for the first time the role of the microbiome communication in the keratinocytes, we've come to learn that your skin is a literal garden, and the soil system is the microbiomes and the nutrients that they deliver directly to the keratinocytes. And so we can do a lot of health for the skin by eliminating toxins in our diet and getting more into those root vegetables that carry a bunch of fiber to improve the microbiome of the gut, because you're getting this downstream effect from microbiome of the gut out to the skin. And then of course your skin is the second largest population of bacteria behind your gut. And so you got these two giant ecosystems of bacteria that are nurturing your skin into its reality. And so if you take that stance and then you take a look at the current cosmetic industry, you realize how ludicrous it is. Here's your skin, plaster 160 chemicals in these different pastes all over your skin so that it can't breathe, so that you choke out the microbiome and its biodiversity, and you poison the skin with over, the typical American consumer, the woman with the normal consumer product week will be exposed to about 160 carcinogens. And so, not only are you not going to respect it, we're going to poison the shit out of this whole seminar has been brought to you by the word shit, apparently. This is an experience here. It's because of that Australian accent. Once you hear an Aussie say the word shit, you can't help it. It's like suddenly ingratiated into your entire vocabulary. But here we are talking about the literal shit in our gut being the source of life for the skin. And then we see its extension to the skin itself. And I want you to think about how little you go to reinforce a healthy microbiome in your day-to-day on your skin itself. And to give you a sense of this, the typical skin of an American consumer is down to a few dozen species that are dominating this ecosystem. So you got this monoculture running across your skin because the only things you touch tend to be walking into the sink in the morning, wash your hands with soap and sprinkle this, and then you're putting on lotions and you're doing all this chemical stuff, and then cosmetics and layers of that, and then eyeliners. And I always screw up all my vocabulary when I get into the space of cosmetics. You just excuse it. It's just lots of tubes is all I know. So get out all the tubes and you do your thing, and you're doing the tube dance in the morning, and then you walk out of the house and you touch your steering wheel, and then you're air conditioned. And at the end of the day, you haven't seen any ecosystems. You haven't introduced your skin to the world. You haven't introduced it to life. And so you've instead masked it, covered it up, poisoned it, sterilized it. And you're this horror of monoculture, and there's no nourishment happening. So as we started developing, the Ion Skin product, we were using the communication network of bacteria to introduce to keratinocytes. And then we lace into that, kind of like a good compost, these tiny, tiny micronutrients that the keratinocytes needed, which were much different than the gut formula that we had worked on over time. And so to find out the different, environments of the epithelial cells of our body need different nutrients is pretty obvious. Some parts of the garden are going to need different nutrients in the soil than others. But the beauty that I think we get out of this is an understanding that it's our connection to nature that really reinforces biodiversity, that reinforces health. When the American Gut Project started as a big nonprofit that's running in Africa now, they are studying the skin microbiome and gut microbiome of indigenous peoples and hunter-gatherer tribes in Africa and stuff like this. And they're finding thousands and thousands of species on the skin that have never been seen in Western world, And one of these dominant species of bacteria, the only place they can find it in the environment in Africa to figure out where it comes from is on the hides of zebras. And these hunter-gatherer tribes, a couple times a year, we'll go out on a long hunt, and they'll kill some zebra and they'll quarter those, and they'll carry the zebra with the hide intact and everything on their shoulder for a day or two all the way back to the tribe. And their skin is populated with zebra, and that zebra microbiome becomes the human microbiome. And so it's an extraordinary example of the fact that when we sterilized our food system and took ourselves out of the process of touching food and out of the process of gathering food, we sterilized our skin as much as we did our gut. And so for each of you, reflecting on that reality, what's coming up in your practices, respectively, or in your companies that are witnessing this loss of biodiversity, perhaps, and nurture for the skin, and what has worked for you to return women to that opportunity to see that skin beauty return?
Yeah, I mean, I'll start. I really have watched my community, which is 40+ year-old women, really wrestle with the changes in skin and want to grab on to the Botox and fillers and all the things to wipe away the aging that's happening. But what I feel like the disconnect that's happening is if you stop and ask yourself, anything you put on your skin, would you put it in your mouth? And if you're not willing to put it in your mouth, then based off of what you just said, and what everything I know about the microbiome, then don't put it on your skin because it's going in your gut, whether you're aware of it or not. So if we look at Botox being rat poison, would you take rat poison and eat it? No, you wouldn't. Okay, so let's just start with whatever is going on your skin has an impact on your total health. It's going to have an impact on your mood. So you might think that the wrinkle on your face is going to make you feel better when you go out into public, but you've now toxified yourself to the point that your hormones are off and your anxiety and depression and insomnia is up. Is that a fair exchange? And I think it's almost like there needs to be like a pattern interrupt. Like, and if you've had Botox and fillers, this is not criticism. This is an awakening that can happen for so many of us to say, I'm going to stop toxifying myself because my mental health is more important than anything else. How can you discover the soul that you are if your mental health keeps going off based off the toxins you're putting in? So it's to your whole ecosystem idea, we need to approach everything from the serums we put on our face to the eyeliners to, do we walk around with no makeup on? Like, all of these decisions that we make on a daily basis impact our total health. And I don't believe that discussion and that connection has happened for people.
Love that.
Well, it's really, I mean, it's like I agree 100%. And I think it's, it's about what we're putting on our skin, the thoughts that we're thinking, all of these things that are coming at us all the time. And we, it's basically, we want to put ourselves, if we're looking for skin health or physical health or beauty or whatever it is, our bodies need to be in a biochemical reaction of rest, digest, and reproduce, right? So the more stressors that we put on ourselves, if that's emotional, mental, chemicals, bad foods for us, all these different things, the further and further away we get from that place, we get stuck in that state of fight or flight or freeze. And the further away we get from things that seem frivolous, like skin health, like, as long as I don't have cancer, but if my skin looks like crap, that's okay. It's not, it's all the same thing. We're all connected. The skin is connected to the emotions and the gut and all of these things. And so it's about, getting away from what we've thought of as beauty, which is very commercialized and very product driven and very things that people that don't care about what chemicals you're putting on your skin those are the people you're buying stuff from. We want to get away from that and move to a place where we're in more of that natural primal beauty that lasts throughout our ages, that changes with us, that is not one set in stone look. And this is how my skin and my body and everything needs to look forever. It is this beautiful, evolving nature that we all have, and it's getting away from the chemicals and everything that gets in the way of that, and the emotions and the everything else.
I'm going to do a shameless plug here. Ever since Zach gave me your skin spray, I've seen an incredible difference on my skin, and I would have never have thought that just simply putting something that balances the microbiome, however it works in your science expression of it, would have such a huge effect on my skin. And I've seen spots change, the pores of my skin within a couple of days. And when I combine that with the skin caps that we have at Wellco, I've just seen incredible. So it shows me that microbiome of the skin is extremely important to the quality of the skin, that radiance that we want to see. And also, if we're looking at looking after our system from the inside, it's going to show on our skin as well. What I find is really interesting is that here in America, there's such an obsession with youth. And it's like the concept is that beauty equals youth. And I did not grow up like that. Like, I grew up where beauty equaled, first of all, nobody talked about in Australia, we didn't talk about beauty being, a person. It was nature. So it was, the sunset was beautiful, the surf at Bondi was beautiful. But in America, this concept of beauty and youth being very interlinked, I have found that beauty and wellness is interlinked. And that has been over a 40-year career of being young and beautiful and being nearly 60 and still beautiful, and realizing that that beauty has come from the way I look after my body. And I got to admit, I've done Botox in my life. Along the way, I felt a lot of pressure in my industry to do it. And every time I did it, I looked so weird. And I was so anxious. Like, I would have heart palpitations for weeks and weeks, thinking like, does my face look weird? Did they see that my face looks weird? Once I had it in my chin, my mouth started to drool. The anxiety and fear around me not changing the way I looked it was so uncomfortable that whatever wrinkles I didn't have didn't mean anything to me. I just didn't want to have that anxiety. And so, it's like here, it's not okay to be just natural in a way. We're taught from an early age, girls are taught at 14, 12, 13, 11 to put on makeup. I was lucky if I wore lip gloss when I was growing up. So we're taking our young girls, we're saying, you're not beautiful enough as you are. You have to change. You have to sculpt your face. You have to put eyeshadow on. You have to make your lashes look longer. So they grow up from 11 years old thinking that the way they are is not enough. We're not beautiful enough. And I just find that extraordinary. I grew up in France, spent a lot of time in France. A woman's age and wisdom is revered there. The more sensual and sexual you are, the more the more attractive you are in France. And they're sort of unashamedly themselves. They're very organically beautiful, and it's their attitude that makes them beautiful. And so, I just think the way we are focusing on this kind of concept of just youth and not really looking at what's going on inside our bodies, to your point, as far as the gut microbiome, the skin microbiome, the way we nourish our bodies, the way we nourish our minds, is where we are letting our young girls down while we're not focusing on that. Because how do we expect at 60 to have this knowledge? Nobody teaches us. We have to, thank God we have Zoom. We can talk to each other about this stuff now.
Yeah, and something I want to say on that is, what is that message for girls when they look in the mirror and have to change how they look because they're not enough? Where else is I'm not enough going to bleed into everywhere else in her life?
Yeah.
And then you put a phone in their hand looking at Instagram, and that I'm not enough perpetuates. So I think what you said, Elle, is just so important. If we could go down and help that generation feel enough, that's where it starts. But it has to start with this appreciation that whether you have, straight hair, curly hair, you're heavier set, you're thinner, your eyes are whatever, crooked, like, it's all beautiful. How do we magnify that? And the other thing I want to point out, and I'd be curious Megan's opinion on this, and Zach, you and Elle and I talked about this on the pre-call, is because we keep changing the way that the face is looking, we are not able to communicate emotions as well. I had one of my closest friends told me one time after she'd gotten some Botox, she said, my kids aren't responding to me the same way. I don't think they know I'm mad. So when I go to try to correct them because they did something, my eyes are not moving. They don't know that I am mad. And I thought, oh God. And she is beautiful. She was beautiful. Everybody talked about how beautiful she was. And as a mother, I was like, no, that's not for me. But that's where the culture, I think we, as a culture, why don't we come together and support the teenage generation and change that so that we stop that madness?
Well, I mean, I have a 14-year-old daughter right now. And I mean, I can attest to, as much as I push all of this, crushing beauty standards and be your authentic self at home. I mean, it is just, she is so inundated every day with these messages of I'm not enough. And yeah, we are our generation, as we are raising kids or have raised kids, like we did not grow up learning emotional intelligence. And so a lot of the times we have grown into adults with all of these repressed emotions, and we are pushing things down and we're numbing things down. And then we also numb the emotions on our face, just like Mindy's talking about. And it's this constant drive to be someone else because we're not enough, and we've got all this stuff festering, and we run around and we keep ourselves busy and distracted with, you know, trends and all of these different things, because we feel like if we slow down enough and get quiet, we're going to feel those feelings of I'm not enough.
Yeah.
So we run around and we do the Botox and we do all the stuff to, like, anything we can possibly do to distract ourselves from that emotion that we all kind of ended up learning and absorbing from society. And so, you know, when I'm working with clients, it's unraveling all that. It's taking down those bricks and all that absorbed subconscious stress and trauma that we, you know, and so as adults, as parents, it is our job to heal ourselves so that we can be good enough and we can know that we're good enough and we can exude that to our children, no matter what age they are. And I still, again, I this is my work every day, and it's still, you know, TikTok and Instagram, like, just knock me down every day. But you know what? I'm just going to keep doing it. And I'm going to, you know, I'm going to go to the pool in a bathing suit and rock my mom bod. And I'm going to, you know, just act like everything's, you know, like I'm going to, you know, I can remember my 9-year-old self. I was 9 the first time that I had that moment that I think all of us women have, that moment of looking down and realizing something was wrong. You know, I remember looking at my belly and thinking, this is bad and I need to hide this. And there's something wrong with me. And, you know, as a teenager, that turned into, you know, the magazines and getting my, you know, picking out like the little pictures of like, oh, I want to look like this. If I could just look like this, everything would be fine. And getting my nails done and my hair done and all that stuff. And, you know, as an adult, it turned into physical illness. And yeah, I mean, we have to stop and take care of ourselves enough so that we can be present in this moment and know that we're good enough, deal with our shit. And so that we can have these teenagers and kids of any age. That's how we change it, is we have to heal ourselves. We can't just hope that Instagram is going to change, because it's not. You know, we have to take charge in our own lives. That's really all we can do.
It's beautiful. We got some questions coming in around, you know, kind of what lifestyle issues that we're told to protect ourselves from the environment at the skin level to decrease aging. And the sun is a very common one. And, you know, should I wear sunscreen is a common one that I get. And from a medical standpoint, we are indoctrinated into the belief of sunscreen hardcore, because my gosh, the sun causes sun cancer and or skin cancer, and that skin cancer explosion that's happened in this country mapped pretty damn well to the phenomenon of sunscreen. And so it turns out that the sun is a massive ball of radiation out in the atmosphere that allowed life to occur on the planet. And without the energy of that sun, not only in the ways in which it interacts with carbon and chlorophylls of our plants to create energetic forces of carbohydrates and fats that we all run on, it also is the stimulant to regeneration. And so when you stop a injury state, a response of the skin, it's the same thing as stopping injury to the bone. So if you stop impact exercise, over the next 5 years, you will dramatically drop your bone density, because bone density is determined by its rate of repair. And a stimulus of injury that is within the biologic threshold of your body's regenerative state is always good for you. And so this concept is often called hormesis in the science realm here, where stimulus that seems injurious actually makes you stronger, not weaker. In the social, you learn this from your grandmother. Well, if it didn't kill you, it made you stronger. And that's absolutely the truth of it at the biology level. So I haven't used sunscreen personally in almost 20 years now. And my skin is better today than it was when I was young in many, many regards. I
Mhm.
have a few wrinkles and I have a few things going on, a few sunspots as they're called. But as we start adding ion and the microbiome intelligence back, those skin spots or the sunspots that we've developed literally fade away.
Yeah.
The skin's memory of those doesn't go away. The skin remembers the injury, but in response to the information that comes from a strong microbiome, you accelerate the rate of repair beyond the original injury. And so if you're watching sunspots and all of that emerge from your face and more freckles and wrinkles and all that, it's because the rate of injury is now catching up to your current rate of repair. And so we need to change our mindset towards sun or dirt, like, oh, my hands always look cracked and dirty if I'm out gardening all the time. We need to start to understand that there's a biologic threshold to step into. And where you find the garden wearing out your skin is when 28 days a month, you're in a cubicle at an office typing on a keyboard, and then you decide you're going to go out and garden for a day, and you got blisters and you tear up the thing and there's dirt under your things and your hands are dried out, versus the individual who wakes up in the morning and introduces their body to nature. You walk outside with as little clothes as socially acceptable, and feel free to push the limits there.
Naked.
Walk outside and feel nature. And remember, you are a sentient being. We started this journey today because I wanted you to remember you're a sentient being because you're interacting with a glorious beauty. And I love the fact that the Aussies are simply think of beauty as a sunset. That's the beauty we're trying to reconnect you to. And you can do that if you reintroduce yourself to that nature every morning. So walk outside with as little clothes as possible and touch nature, nurture nature. Go out and prune a bush or honor the roses that are blooming out there, or pull a carrot out of the ground and taste that first thing in the morning. Introduce your body to nature is what I would say to the sun issue. Let your body feel the sunrise.
Yeah.
And all of the melanocytes, all of the skin cells that are there in the keratinocyte population to do regenerative events will wake up. If you keep yourself clothed, cover yourself with sunscreen, and walk around for 300 days a year without seeing sun on your back, and then you go to the beach and you burn the crap out of yourself for a week, you've done more damage than your body has the capacity to heal because you haven't introduced it to nature in a year. And so you need to start to understand your body and the lifestyle that would support that body as an interface with nature. And so reintroduce yourself to sun is a big way that I would do this. But one of our fascinations with Ion Skin is that we've been studying the effects of radiation on keratinocytes for 2 years now. We have this sun box in our laboratory that allows us to dial in exactly how much UVB radiation you give a petri dish of keratinocytes. And so we can measure anything from 1 joule to thousands of kilojoules of sunshine on this layer of skin. And this is a layer of keratinocytes that doesn't have the protection of all those layered up skin cells that you walk outside with. So we get a very sensitive measure of the influences of this on. And when you put Ion Skin before the radiation, you see that the radiation damage no longer induces a stress response in the skin, but instead a regenerative response. And you end up with more tight junctions, more coherent membrane barrier system against the makeup or whatever you're going to put on next, or the glyphosate and the rainfall that you're walking through right now. So your barrier becomes stronger, and that from the combination of sun and microbiome intelligence. And so just as the rest of the planet works in this incredible little tiny thin rim of life, if you imagine the depths of space coming down through our atmosphere about 10 feet off the ground to about 10 feet deep, that magical 20 feet compared to the eons of space out and thousands of meters of soil beneath, that 20 feet is where life happens. Where your life happens is in that same environment, that where the sun hits the skin, the tiny bit of depth of soil they're in, that's where the magic is going to happen, at the gut lining, at the skin lining, at your eyeball, etc. And so reintroducing yourself to nature is going to be a critical piece of this. But I want to give you guys an opportunity to jump into, and I know it's a horror to hear that you're not supposed to wear sunscreen, because it's one of the most triggering sentences I found in medicine is stop wearing sunscreen. People freak out for reasons I don't even understand. It's like they'd rather be told don't eat. I don't know why, but don't eat for 5 days. People are like, oh, that sounds miserable, but I'll do it. If I tell them to stop their sunscreen, they're like, oh, hell no. Like there's a religious belief that sunscreen and staying away from sunshine is somehow going to make you young. And I can guarantee you it will accelerate your speed into the grave for sure. So so watch the sunscreen and reintroduce yourself carefully to it. But other thoughts around the interactions of the sun and skin?
I haven't used sunscreen for years. I don't have my kids use it unless it's, like we're going to be out all day long and, we need a little bit of something. The skin is what keeps us all alive. Like it's what makes the earth, nature grow. It gives us, there's nutrients in the sun. I don't use it either.
Yeah, and I would say the same thing. I don't use it either. Haven't used it in years. Didn't when we would go to the beach as a family and all the kids were getting sprayed with it, I'd pull my kids aside and be like, "Go play in the ocean." We're not. We don't. Our family doesn't do that. One of the things I do want to bring up that I think is really important about when it comes to getting sunburnt is that we haven't really discussed the omega-3 6 balance. And when we look at what the typical, and I know we have a worldwide audience here, but when we look at the typical American diet, it's 16 times more harmful inflammatory omega-6 compared to 1 of omega-3. Mm-hmm. So to your point, Zach, when you're sitting inside, your eyes aren't registering light. By the way, you have serotonin receptor sites in your eyes that when they register light, they turn on and you now become happy. When we're inside a cubicle, we're not getting sunlight, we're eating harmful oils, and then the weekend rolls around and we spray chemicals on our skin and we go out into the sun with sunglasses on, we have no idea that we've just set ourselves up for more chronic disease, more depression, possibly more cancer. So it's almost like it's the 180 degree response to what the line you have been sold. And something as simple as bringing your omega-3 and 6 fatty acid balance back, where you're getting that 1-to-1 ratio, is the most ultimate sunscreen around. Try it. Try balancing your fatty acids and go out without any sunscreen and then see what happens. And combine that with removing your sunglasses, combine that with in the morning, get your feet on the ground, see the red light that comes up. So it sets your circadian rhythm. Yeah. All of this synergizes together to make you the healthiest spiritually, physically, mentally person you can be. Spraying sunscreen on you is not what is going to prevent cancer. It's embracing the totality of what it takes to keep your skin healthy so that it can thrive in the sun, and then embracing the sun, because that's where vitamin D, you get your vitamin D. There's so much, the serotonin, there's so much that the sun can give you.
Well, your career took you into the sun all the time. So how did you deal?
Yeah, I grew up covering myself in baby oil, getting as dark as I possibly could in the 70s in Australia. I remember people having like silver boards so that they could get brown behind their ears. And we were not very educated as far as length of time in the sun and how to look after ourselves. And as you know, as a consequence, I'm covered in freckles, and then I went completely the opposite. I was in an industry where everyone said, "Oh my God, your skin is terrible because you spent too much time in the sun." So I started to cover myself in sunscreen, and then I tried to laser it off. And then, of course, you're even more sensitive to the sun. So I've been through the whole gamut of everything. I can't give advice to other people, but I can tell you what works for me. Naked matcha in the sun at 8 o'clock and 7 o'clock in the morning, downward dogs with hands and feet on the grass and doing sun salutations and getting that morning sun without any sunscreen. I use Zach's Ion spray, which just does wonders for my skin. And, you know, I have a completely different perspective on it. And because I'm doing things differently, I see a huge difference in my skin. So I've been through the whole gamut of it. And living in Florida, obviously, I'm in the sun all the time. But I feel like my skin is better quality than it's ever been. So
amazing. There's an opportunity for kind of closing words from all of you, and I want to give you the opportunity. The 2 hours always flies by so fast, where I'm always just like, oh my gosh, there's so much more to talk about. It feels like we launched on incomplete rabbit holes all over the place there. But I'm so grateful for our opportunity to just come together as a community with everybody and reflect on what it is to be beautiful as a community. So last conclusions from all of you as you percolate on this. Megan, you want to jump in?
Yeah, I think my last thought is, if we are talking about beauty or health or whatever, it's really about dropping the story, getting out of our heads and getting out of the negative thought loops, dropping the story of, of being sick, of being unwell, dropping the story of being ugly or whatever kind of negative self-talk that you have come accustomed to telling yourself. It's dropping that story, dropping the story of what beauty is, and allowing yourself, giving yourself permission to thrive, giving yourself permission to see yourself and see others and see the world with a fresh perspective. And that's really where it all starts. And, and I love that where this has gone today, sitting amongst these other amazing people and just talking about, authentic beauty and authentic wellness. And that's not coming from, chemicals. That's not coming. It's about embracing nature and the sunshine and the right foods, the whole foods from the earth, and embracing, these new stories of wellness and changing that story for ourselves, which in changes that for our children and the world.
So well said, Dr. Peltz.
Yeah, I mean, really well said. I really have enjoyed this. I feel like we could keep going. This has been amazing. Here's where my thoughts are. If we go back and we look at the pandemic that happened in 1918, out of that came a whole new way of life. And I know we've talked a lot about women in here, and I don't want to leave the men out, but one of the things that came out of that time was what they call the new woman, and the new woman was the flapper. She was short hair, short dress. She was unruly. She was unladylike. And it was a total transformation for women. I feel like out of this pandemic is coming an empowered woman, and a woman who is taking back control of her life by loving herself, by showing up authentically, and by finding her own, to Elle's point, the soul deep, going deep into her soul to discover herself. And as we move from this pandemic, if you want to be in a more empowered place, it's time to let go of fear. We're going to see a dramatic shift in people who are going to be staying stuck in fear, and people are going to stay stuck in love. I hope we all stay stuck in love, because it's in love that we find ourselves. We give each other permission to be ourselves, and we find beauty in even the most wrinkly of faces.
Well, you just introduced me to my 50th birthday party. For some years I've been like, what am I doing for my 50th birthday? I don't like doing birthday parties typically, but I just had this thing in my head of like, I think I'm gonna like that birthday. I don't know why. I'm gonna throw a party. I'm doing a freaking flapper party for sure. You played me on that one. That has got like every neuron in my body firing. I was like, hell yeah, bring back the flappers and let's fuck up the common paradigm. Let's do this thing. All right, Elle, jump in for us before I go off the rails.
I want to come to that party. Okay, so here's my thoughts. I believe that wellness is the new beautiful. I think that health is the new wealth, that kindness is the new cool, and inner peace is the new success. And I think that's what we've been talking about today.
That was very concise. My brain is confused by that level of conciseness. I'm like, how did you do that? All right. Well, that was phenomenal. All right. Well, for all of you in the audience, I'm just so grateful for your presence in my life and in the life of our whole mission at hand, which is to find the humanity in each of us. And I think my camera's going blurry on me right now because I just went interdimensional. Because that's how it feels. I just stepped out of the limitations of my beauty at my skin, And I'm asking you to look through me right now and see something deeper. And I'm going to open up my heart again to you and show you all of me, because it's the most valuable asset I have. And I recognize that in seeing me completely, you will see yourself completely, because I don't think I am a complete healed mind yet. I have layers of ego that are still disentangling, and layers of emotional trauma that I go through and discover through every intervention I make. And so I'm a work in progress towards a completed being that the Course in Miracles has called into my life. But as I approach that, I'm able to see you better, and you're able to see me better. And I'm intrigued by the possibility that we could see a radical shift in humanity, a radical change in which we interact with each other, because we find our own identity not within a box of tubes in the morning, but instead an opportunity to see ourselves reflected in the face of a stream or in the surface of a lake, see ourselves in the cool breeze that is going to grace our body tomorrow morning when we're doing downward dog in the sun naked. And I just get a kick out of like what my neighbors might be able to see. That white butt up in the air and everything else would just be, it would be exemplary of the cosmic joke that everything would be my white butt and downward dog in the morning. So I feel like I need to embrace that inner cosmic joke for everybody and really take that lesson. So thank you, Elle, for that vision. For everybody's deeply appreciative of that right now. So that wonderful thoughts. And as we start to think about reintroducing your skin and your beauty back to nature, I'm very confident that you're going to find in yourself a resilience and a regenerative capacity that has been forgotten. But a deeper lesson that I want you all to think about again, and perhaps honor of my adopted grandmother here who's in transition, is just close your eyes for a minute here as we come to close. And I want you to think about the skin on the face of your grandmother, or the skin on the back of your grandmother's hand that you held at the bedside when she was dying, or the skin of your grandmother's hand and her face that you will see at Christmas when you are rejoined this year. Look at the wrinkles around her eyes. Look at the wrinkles at the corners of her mouth. Look at the expression on her forehead when she glances at you with that cutting glance that you know you just are in trouble. And she looks at you like, girl, you are busted. That face is so expressive and it's so full of life. Would you want there to be less wrinkles on that face? Would you want less spots and freckles on that face? Or do you want to just rub your face all over that face right now? Do you want to get up in that and just say, I love you, I miss you, thank you for being with me, thank you for showing me your beauty in your age, in your wisdom, thank you for allowing yourself through the seasons of life, thank you for not rejecting yourself as the seasons unfolded. And then I want you to shift gears and see in your mind's eye your own face in the mirror this morning. And realize that coming out of me and coming out of you, emerging from my face is the face of a grandfather. Emerging from you is the face of a grandmother. And no person in your environment, family member or otherwise, is going to wish you had less wrinkles. You are an emerging elder among us at a time in which our human history is forgotten, disregarded, discredited, undervalued. Become the wisdom that you have lived. Welcome yourself back into nature, because you sure as hell going to return to it. There's no tube of mascara that ever added a day of life to a human being. But I have seen human fellowship extend life. I've seen loneliness killing people quickly, and I've seen reconnection healing those people. And so be an agent of change as we go forward today. reconnect to the nature that's welcoming you back into her fellowship to extend your life. It will be extended. You will live longer for touching nature. You will certainly live happier for the sun that you will see tomorrow morning. Take off the sunglasses, just look at the sun. What are you trying to protect yourself from? What are you really hiding? What darkness in you are you trying to protect with the sunglasses? Let the light in. What shadows are you afraid to reveal when you put on the sunscreen? Let the sun in. Let it reveal all the shadow play in you. Let it reveal the darkness. Let it fill that darkness with its light. Be filled. You are the literal light being that Elle talked about. You are a light being and you are among us, and you express yourself through a momentary particle state that we call a physical body. But the light waves go on forever. Your light source has been there forever, since the beginning of time as we would know it. Your light source of your soul has been there, and it expresses itself momentarily right now. Show that to somebody, and take the time to see the other light beings around you. And for that, we're going to find our beauty. For that, we're going to celebrate a new humanity. And for that, we will grieve our path so that we can get to the stage of forgiveness. And then we will go through the stage of forgiveness so that we can get to the stage of gratitude. I'm grateful to be alive right now with all of you. I wish you all the best of the day today, the night for some of you. Thank you, Dr. Mindy Pelz, Elle Macpherson, Megan Buer. You are goddesses in my life. Thank you for all that you've done to love me back into myself. Megan, you have taught me so many of those layers. Thank you. And thank you for the representation of life that you each have given me in the ways in which you interact with your environments. And for all of you, if you need more information to engage, there is great places to find all these people. Elle Macpherson, at Elle Macpherson as the social media tag there. At Wellco is the company. That's a WELLE, well as in L. Wellco.com, Dr. Mindy Pelz at, and drmindypelz.com. And then at Harmony Restored is Megan Buer, and the .com there. So grateful to have all three of you here. Dive into these three women. They've all got resources online for you, books written. They've got educational content there with Megan Buer and with Dr. Mindy Pelz, as well as a lot of content coming out of Wellco there in regards to their products and all of that. And for all of you that are interested in reconnecting your skin to the microbiome, there's ION, the ION stuff that we've been studying for years. And I would invite you to explore this experience of ION, which stands for the intelligence of nature, as an exploration of yourself. And so what this product does is cover nothing. There's nothing in this product but the communication network of the microbiome. It doesn't do anything to your body. And I want you to know that all of the ION products are designed not to trigger a single receptor. There's no vitamins in them that would go downstream to hit receptors. This is just communication. The communication, when you put into the cellular state, reveals what is being communicated from the cells themselves. And so what you're going to see when you start spraying this on your skin is not a product, but yourself. And so this is going to reveal who you are and what you're trying to say to the world. And so this is a megaphone at the cell level to get your message out to the world of who you are, what your beauty is, and the rest. And in that, we would love to embrace you with our health program, which is our journey of intrinsic health. If you haven't had a team around you to kind of take you on this journey into self and rediscover your definition of health and vitality, journeyofintrinsichealth.com is an opportunity for you there. If you appreciate what you've seen here today, again, we want to recognize that it's been brought to you by you. You guys have all supported us at the Global Health Education event. We're so grateful for your support. Every dollar has come from directly from our GoFundMe program that helps me pay the staff that does all of this behind the scenes work, from the social media and education on to the interface that you've experienced today. And you can dive in there at the Zach Bush MD website and get more information there for getting us funded there. So grateful for your contributions. Thank you so much, all three of you, for being the people you are. So excited to see you on the flip side of your adventures. I hope to share a meal with each of you soon, and we'll continue the fellowship.